Welcome to today's channel. Tensions rise in Ireland after 5 people stabbed in Dublin. Well, the stabbing of 5 people in Ireland has inflamed dissatisfaction amongst the nation over rapidly increasing immigration, but police chiefs blamed rioting in Dublin city centre last week on a quote lunatic hooligan faction driven by a far-right ideology, end of quote. Joining us now to discuss this is author Michael Walsh. Michael, great to see you. So what's happening there in Ireland that we had the stabbing and now it's apparently far-right. If you in any way try to blame other riots that then followed on the question surrounding immigration, tell us about it. Yeah, well, everything in Ireland is far-right that is not in lockstep agreement with the government media complex in Ireland. Ireland has a nominal two-party system which goes back to the treaty that you may recall from watching our movies about Michael Collins and Dve Valera, which parties split over the treaty that eventually won partial independence from Britain. So they're called Fianna Gael and Fianna Fáil. Effectively they're the UNIP party now. They are both in favour of what the government is in favour of, and they have formed a coalition government after the last election, since neither one of them could get a majority, and they are presently in coalition government with a very tiny party called the Green Party, which curiously enough all of the major government ministries including the environment and has elements of the immigration in it as well. So it's a powder kick. I live on the west coast of Ireland in a house where my great-grandmother was born. I visited it and brought property up, and I moved my family to Ireland. I have Irish son-in-law, I have 2 Irish grandchildren and a third on the way, and I'm looking forward to seeing them very soon. But that's one version of immigration. The other version is the untramelled. Everyone can come in and is entitled to the most generous benefits in the European Union just on their say so. They arrived with no passports, no papers, no nothing, and immediately demand housing, etc. Predominantly among them, although not the source of this current trouble, are the Ukrainians, who have been welcomed with open arms, even though, as I pointed out from time to time, that by welcoming Ukrainian men into Ireland you are effectively supporting Putin, because those men are subject to the draft back home in the Ukraine. We haven't quite thought this whole thing through. But what happened in the stabbing of the day, and it's personal to me. I have 2, as I mentioned, 2 grandchildren, the third on the way, and one, my elder granddaughter, goes to school in Dublin. She's a great schooler. Like the victims of this particular stabbing that was just the thing that set the simmering powder cake off, and the government has chosen to deal with it by basically cracking down on everyone who is opposed to immigration, as the terms understood in the political sense, and calling them far-right, and are asking for hate speech crimes new laws. And it's a mess. Michael, I saw Conor McGregor, the famous Irish UFC fighter, come out strongly. I think police are now investigating to see whether some of his statements breached hate laws, but he has been very outspoken about explaining where this anger comes from, and it's not just some far-right hooligan element. So I'm interested to see how he has suddenly become the voice of this affected people. At the top of the show we played a compilation of Irish politicians standing up in Parliament and just making the most absurd anti-white comments. Is there a self-loathing in Ireland? The people are voting for this. Is there, I don't know, a crisis in identity where they hate who they are? Well, as I used to joke with my friend James, who's sitting next to you, during the Australia lockdown, once a penal colony, always a penal colony. Australia and Ireland, once a slave state of the British, always the slave state. And in this case we substituted 700 years of slavery under England for a few years, a few decades of freedom, and then rushed back into the embrace of new slaves. They live in Belgium of all places. Who had Ireland gets taken over by Brussels on their bingo card, and Irish politicians now are wholly employed by the European Union, so they don't care what the Irish people think. They answer, and in their lights, understandably, to the EU and Belgium, and they're constantly citing EU laws over Irish sovereignty. While many years ago I was flying back to Ireland, and a Irish woman next to me said to me at that point, this was in the 90s, "I feel like we're losing my country." And I said, "What do you mean feel like? You already lost it the minute you joined the Union. You lost your sovereignty 100%. That's what all of this comes from. That and so that where then I feel sort of like with Ireland, it feels like kind of the test case for a lot of other countries right now. And that if you look at this law that they're pushing through on hate speech, where essentially memes on your phone, the cops can look at your phone and say, hey, that's a hateful meme, we don't like that, and you could wind up literally banned up for it. And I feel like this is almost the test model that they're trying it out in sort of a small country like Ireland to run it out in bigger jurisdictions, including Force Australia. Tell us about this hate speech law and how that would actually wind up working. Well, the hate speech law has been proposed now for a few months. It's been set aside, except that the government has used this protest by quote far-right hooligans in response to the stabbing of a little girl by what appears to have been an Algerian immigrant who had been ordered deported, oddly enough, and then was rescued probably by the NGS, who are the do-good external forces all over Ireland. Quite powerful, and they eventually got him citizenship. Well, people were finally just completely fed up with this, but to crack down on the people, remember, the people don't matter. They're animals on a farm, and Ireland is viewed by the EU as a kind of backwater with a lot of empty space, because after all, Brits emptied us out from 8 million to 4 million people during the famine, but as John C. says in Fawlty Towers, just don't mention the war so we don't mend the famine. But there's a lot of space in Ireland, or it's being used. I think you're absolutely right, James. It's being used as test case in order to see how far they can push a country that doesn't really have a lot of pushback in it. Are so many of the Irish like me and my family, and millions of us in Australia, are in New Zealand, in Canada, in the United States, are immigrants not by choice but of necessity during the 19th century particularly, and so Ireland is really defenseless, and because it doesn't have a real sense of its own nationhood other than its cultural Irishness, it's finding it hard to fight back. And also, but Rita mentioned this, the politicians now have decided to adopt American terminology that is you're either white or you're not, exactly, and not is good. So we literally have these discussions going on in Ireland where people say, why aren't there more black faces in television shows? About 15 QEIR, there weren't any. They look at you like you're crazy. Exactly, Michael. Well, great to chat you. Sorry I got to cut you up there. Chat to you for hours. Really great stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you.